Thank you. Thank you for being flexible, friends. The readings, there are two today from the Christian scriptures, not from the Gospels, which is usually what I do cite now that I think about it. From Romans 12, do not be conformed to this age, but be transformed by the renewing of the mind, so that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. And then one of my favorite passages from Philippians 4, with the peace of God that passes all understanding, guard your hearts and minds. I adulterated it a little bit. And finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So a couple of weeks ago, I launched us into this deep and broad seas that is the topic of the power of words. And we looked at the power of words we speak to other people. This week I want to take us a little bit in a different direction, because there's still a lot to talk about the power of words. But I want to look at the power of the words we speak to ourselves, what's commonly called self-talk. And I want to combine the idea of self-talk with just thoughts in general, so that we can get a bigger picture. You know I'm going to get all sciencey on you. So between the fields of neurology and psychology, pathology, and several other ologies, there's tons of information from studies of the brain as it relates to our thoughts and our thinking. In the bottom line of it is, the brain is a 24/7 non-stop thought generator. That is it.
Yeah.
Science estimates that a range of 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day racing through the 100 billion neurons that are in the brain. So I'm thinking, well, if you have attention deficit disorder, or if you tend to be a little restless, or some other type of neurodivergent process in your brain, insomnia, oh my goodness, then you would probably say more than 60,000 is your vote. And that's probably would be true. Studies also estimate that of those 60,000 thoughts, we'll go with that, 80% are negative. 80%. And 95% are repetitive, which if you do deductive reasoning, 5% of our thoughts, only 5%, are new thoughts, like ahas, or I hadn't thought of that kind of thing. I've always referred to my thoughts as greyhounds racing on a track after that elusive rabbit. And there are times it's like, no, I think they're cats chasing a rabbit. But the problem is there's no finish line in my head. And if you're a writer, sometimes things I'm writing will write themselves as I'm trying to sleep or something. So when it comes to the thoughts we think and the mental stories they tell, because eventually they become stories, the brain is deeply efficient. So once we've had that thought, maybe when we were 8 months old, and we think that thought again and again and again, the brain creates a pathway. They're called neural pathways that get so efficient that it continues to carry that thought on that pathway with little to no effort. whatsoever. That way the brain doesn't have to expend any energy thinking whatever we were thinking. So those neural pathways allow those thoughts to run over and over again. If you think about it, you learned how to ride a bike probably. Mary's learning Spanish. You learned how to drive a car, or you will. When you're learning something new, it's exhausting. Like, when we were learning to drive a car, it's like, oh, you mean I have to do this and this and this? And when my daughter was learning how to drive a car, my mother drove past us, and she thought I need to blow the horn, and she thought I need to wave, and she hit the glass. Because her brain knew I need to do something, and that's a lot of work. But how many times have you gotten somewhere and you're thinking, how did I get here? I don't even remember. Those neural pathways were running the show. And those habituated processes and thoughts eventually become our identity. We so identify with those thoughts that we never stop to question them unless we do it on purpose. And that's what I call habits of the mind, which they have their own pathway, of course. They're there. So the mental habit of self-talk, I think, can take 4 different directions. These aren't the only directions, but these are 4 that I think are common. I left a few out for brevity. But to me, the first one that is a real habit is personalizing external events. Like taking something personal that happens outside of us. We may feel guilty, we may feel shame, we may feel anger, and it has nothing to do with us at all. Or it was a conversation we had that wasn't intended to leave us feeling a certain way, but we do. When I was a little kid, I always thought when my parents closed their bedroom door, they were going to talk about my bad behavior that day. And it's like, I wasn't all that bad, but I thought what did I do wrong today? And I would go through it in my mind. They were probably just trying to close off the door from 4 children. It's like, quiet, listen, there's no noise. But so that was what I took personally. We may think that an event is in our control, even when it's not. And then we'll beat ourselves up for what we did or didn't do, even though it wasn't in the locus of our control. We couldn't shift the outcome, but we still beat ourselves up for it. That's personalizing. Taking things personal, taking them to heart, is also taking them to mind and letting that play over and over again. Negative self-talk can also be reflected in our tendency to imagine and magnify negative aspects of an event. How many of you have played a conversation over and over in your mind? And it's like, would you please shut up, in my head, because it's the conversation. But the negative aspect that I'm perceiving gets bigger and louder, and it just gets so exaggerated that it echoes in my ears. And it seems to take on a life of its own, and we're just kicking ourselves for what we perceive, maybe thinking, oh man, I messed up. But that's negative self-talk. And it doesn't have to be something in the past or in the recent present. It can be something in the future. Like we anticipate grief, we can anticipate negativity to the point that we may so dread what's coming up, even though we don't know what it is. We don't know what's going to happen, and we'll get anxious about it just because we've magnified it in our minds. And just because we think it happened doesn't mean it really did. Most of the time when you go back to that conversation and you talk to the person, they're like, you thought what? Really? I didn't mean it that way. And it's like, I've been killing myself over this, and you didn't even mean it like that?
If they even remember it.
If they even remember it, exactly. It may or may not have unfolded the way we remember it, but we still continue to personalize it and magnify it. A third way, which isn't quite as common that people do negative self-talk, is called catastrophizing. And I've always said catastrophizing is the 50-cent word that really means worry on steroids. Because something bad is going to happen, and it's badder than bad. It's worse than worse. And that just kind of mushrooms. Or worse yet, it's already happened and I don't know how everybody is or what happened to the whole situation. And there's no amount of logic, there's no amount of proof or even argument that will stop those thoughts from expanding. Quite often, people who catastrophize in their thoughts are more adversely affected in the physical because of that overwhelming, persistent negativity. A final common, very common self-talk habit is to generalize. And I joke that I was so good at generalizing I was perfect. But that's a generalization. So I have to slap my knee when I say that. But when you generalize, and I really was very good at it, that everything is black and white. That's why I say I married Tracy. She could see gray in places I couldn't. It's like, oh, there's alternatives to that or that? Black or white or all bad or all good or terrible and great, very exaggerated. It's everybody or nobody. I know you have probably heard someone say, oh, we've always done it that way. And it's like, always? Or that never works. Never?
About this meeting?
Never. No. I've been a change consultant. I've heard that too many times. But to me, generalizing, and I'm speaking from my own experience, it seems to snuff the breath out of hope and out of new possibilities and new ideas. I couldn't see possibilities when I was generalizing. It breeds contempt and bitterness because generalizing left me feeling like a victim of whatever I had generalized, or it left me feeling outnumbered somehow, like I could never get a leg up because everybody, nobody. It's always or never. So what does it mean for us to renew our minds, as the writer of Romans said? And if we think on these things like Philippians, isn't that just fairy dust and unicorns? I mean, really, somebody needs to pay attention to reality out there somewhere. But it turns out that there are studies, scientific studies, on the concepts of positive self-talk as well. It turns out that when we develop a new habit of positive self-talk, we're improving other aspects of our lives at the same time. Might not feel like it, but the scientifically proven benefits of positive self-talk include improved physical vitality, improved mental well-being, our immune systems and our cardiovascular systems both have been proven to improve with positive self-talk. Pain, stress, and anxiety are all diminished when we use positive self-talk. We don't have to be an ostrich with our heads in the sand, but we can improve even our spirituality and our sense of gratitude by shifting those 60,000, what's 80% of 60,000, we can improve just by changing a few of those thoughts. But with upward of 60,000 thoughts and permanently paved neural pathways, how do we dive in? It's like getting into the fray of all of that chaos to try to improve the tone of our thoughts and the tenor of our lives. As with every other desired self-improvement, it's got to start with awareness. Your brain, the way I see it is, your brain's already computing all those thoughts. You're already thinking, and you're thinking a lot. But how do you intentionally think rather than run on autopilot? To begin to break up those old neuropathways, I like to imagine them being Highway 66, Route 66, now it's just broken up old roads. You have to start by listening to your thoughts. Catch yourself thinking. And if they're 95% repetitive, it's not going to take you long to notice there's some themes going on. They might use different words, but they will have a pattern of themes. So once you start noticing those thoughts, jot them down. Jot some of them down. Even just writing them down stops the greyhounds from the track they're on. What are you saying most often to yourself? How can you shift the most repeated thoughts into more positive statements? You might catch yourself thinking something like, boy, I really messed that one up. How embarrassing. You might put a twist on that and say, well, I did my best and I really tried. Give yourself the support there. Or you might say, it took a lot of courage for me to try something new. And I know I'll get better in the long run when I practice. I've gotten where I'll say, well, look at me thinking X, Y, Z. There I go again. And being okay with it, just to let that thought go. I always joke about there's a backhanded way that isn't positive to say something like, boy, am I glad I'm not that crazy. That's still a negative. It's kind of the Pharisees. I'm glad I'm not that person praying that way, but that's not a positive statement. So make sure it's really positive. But when you're unsure of what a positive statement might be that replaces a negative thought, you can ask yourself, what would a trusted friend say? What would your coach or your teacher have said? If you remember the bracelets from 100 years ago that said WWJD, what would a trusted person who sees the best in you even when you can't, like Jesus or the Buddha or your grandma, what would they say? WWJS. If you begin to repeat those, whatever they would say to you, you will interrupt those negative streams of thought and begin to stop the stories they're telling you that aren't true. Once you've begun to notice your thoughts and shift them, it's important to pay attention to what triggered those thoughts in the first place. Maybe it's certain people or certain places or situations. Being hot, man, I will, that gets me going. I don't like being too hot. Maybe watching the news or being stuck in traffic triggers negative thinking. So seek out positive activities, positive people, positive situations. Go a different way. Turn off the TV. get a fan. Do something that will reinforce the new positivity you want your thoughts to convey. When conversations turn to complaint and criticism, I'm going to challenge y'all as a group. There you have two choices. One choice is get up out of the sandbox, get your toys, and go home. That's if there's no hope. I'm not going to change half my family, so I just don't say anything. But if you're brave enough, or if you're comfortable enough, you could say something that will shift. If you say something positive, people won't continue on a negative vein. If you harp in on the complaint and the moaning and criticism, people will continue that. So I like what Peter McWilliams wrote. The title of his book is "You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought." So find a way to stop the flow. It's also important to avoid getting so caught up in doing in activities that you forget to check in with your thoughts. Oddly enough, if I'm too sedentary, even if it's doing something I love, like reading or making art, I'll get into this downward spiral of negative thoughts. And I've decided it's my body's way of saying, get up, I need to move. And so now I have a timer, because I'll ignore my watch, I'll ignore an app, but I have a timer on my desk that tells me to get up every certain amount of minutes before the negative spiral starts. And I move my body and acknowledge what my body needs before negativity sets in. So you can ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? What was that about? When a negative thought goes through you, no judgment. What was that about? Or you might say, what's really going on here? And call yourself by name. Just to stop the thoughts from circulating. Another more fun way is to leave yourself positive notes of encouragement and upliftment. I tore off a sticky note that I have. I think sticky notes are wonderful inventions. I used to take index cards even. And one of my favorite sayings is, things are always working out for me. And if it doesn't look like it, then I know I'm not at the end of the story yet. So things are always working out for me. I think I might make another one, though, that says, it is well with my soul. It would be a beautiful affirmation to give all those negative thoughts. It's like feeding stray cats. The more you feed them, the more they come. Are you going to feed them gourmet food, or are you going to feed the good ones or the mean ones? All you have to do is put a sticky note up where you will see it on a constant basis, and your brain will pick that up and keep paving that neural pathway that you started. One thing that I don't think many people I've heard of doing is to script positive situations in your mind. And I like to take my positive statements. If everything's working out for me, what would it look like? And I imagine what that would look like in my head. And what you're doing, your brain's a computer. You're programming that computer by showing it what those positive statements look like. It doesn't know the difference. It just thinks it happened. And so by taking it and making up scenarios, like maybe you want to learn to speak up for yourself, then you take a scenario and you speak up for yourself in it. You make it up and you see it working out, and shaking hands and being happy, and let that play out. Imagine the mental stories that would reflect what it would look like for you to self-advocate. You can also write a script from an actual experience you've had. Sometime or another, you stood up for yourself. That might be why you're afraid now. But change it. You remember it. change it. Have the outcome be different so that you're changing the neural pathway. You're digging up that old pavement and pouring new pavement down a different route, the scenic route. So by doing that, you're reinforcing your positive thoughts more strongly. Images speak very strongly. So when we pay attention to what we're thinking in our minds and what we're saying in our heads, and we replace those thoughts with positive statements and stories, our self-perceptions can and will change, and we'll begin to see it out into what we call reality. You will see what you've been focusing on in your brain. And science has proven that by renewing of our minds, we will renew our bodies and our spirits as well. It's a good place to start. No side effects, except good ones. I think there is amazing wisdom in, if we take it to heart and to our minds, in the words I read earlier. Whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable. If there is any excellent and anything worthy of praise, think on these things. And so it is. Amen.